gonna try and film this video fast because it is so cold. Hello my friends! I understand that I've been away for a bit, having now officially moved into my new house. Welcome to my conservatory, by the way. This is where I'm going to be filming the majority of my videos from now on. I don't even have to have a light in here. It's bright already! And that means that I can start making some more content for you guys. Granted, it might not be the same content that I would normally make because my house is still kind of in shambles. But that doesn't mean that I can't make something, which is what we're doing today. Specifically, given that this is the New Year's period and it's just after Christmas, I wanted to talk about the prepping of new decks, Oracle or Tarot. So in this video, we're going to go over what you need to do to set up a new Tarot or Oracle deck. I imagine that if you received one over Christmas or New Year's that you are very, very excited to get your hands into this new deck of yours. But there are a few things that I recommend you doing before you start telling the future to all of your friends and family using this new deck. Also, if the audio sounds strange here, it's because I've misplaced my dictaphone and I don't actually know where it is. So you're just gonna have to put up with the phone microphone quality for a little while. So the first thing that we have to acknowledge here is that tarot and oracle cards are divining tools. They are spiritual tools that we use to connect to the divine and to understand ourselves psychologically a little bit better. And that means we need to know exactly what we're working with in that spiritual work. So for starters, we should know what we have. In this video, I'm going to use a recent find of mine as an example, which is this movie tarot deck that I found in a charity shop not far from my new house. I haven't done any prep work with it since I bought it, so it's going to work as a fine example so you can see exactly how I would. It's absolutely gorgeous though, right? Imagine how I got this for £3. It retails at £20, I think, so this was an absolute steal to be able to get secondhand. So, how do we know what we're working with? This might be a lot easier with a brand new deck straight from their retailer, but knowing what kind of divining deck you're using is going to determine what you use that deck for and what other decks you might use it with, etc, etc. Is your deck a tarot deck or an oracle deck? This should be evident in the name of the deck that you've bought. Usually it will say on the box or in the guide or something, but you should also be able to tell via the layout. If the layout has a major and minor arcana, court cards, or even just 78 cards in total, then it's almost guaranteed to be a tarot deck. If the system is completely unique to that deck itself, and the numbering of said cards is unique, then it's most likely to be an oracle deck. You can then narrow down what kind of tarot deck it is by the layout of said tarot deck, specifically the major arcana. Traditionally, most people tend to use the Rider-Waite system whenever they're creating new tarot decks in the modern day. But there are still some people that use Aleister Crowley's Tote system, which is similar, but not the same. So an easy way to check is to look at the last card of the major arcana. If the last card of the major arcana is the World, then it's most likely going to be the Rider-Waite system. If the last card is the Universe, however, this is probably going to be a Tote style deck. If you have the name of the deck, this is also a good time to just do a quick Google search and see what the internet has to say about the deck that you own. If you're having a hard time discerning what the deck is, like if you don't have the box or the case or something, you can always look up keywords around the style of the deck, and that might help you find out what deck you actually have. Naturally, I will shout out Eclectic Tarot forums and the absolute wealth of information that is on that website regarding tarot decks specifically. Look up the name or the style of the particular tarot deck that you've got, and you are almost guaranteed to find some information about it on that website. It's so scary in here. When looking up things for the movie tarot, it was a pretty easy find considering it's a relatively new deck. The movie tarot is obviously a tarot deck. I also found, upon opening the box, that the deck itself still had the security band around the cards. So I can pretty safely assume that whoever owned this previously probably didn't use it, or if they did, they were very, very gentle with it. Taking the cards out now, I made a point of going through and checking which was the last card in the major arcana, letting me know that this is most likely a Rider-Waite deck because the World is the last card in the deck. The actual illustration is also Lilu from The Fifth Element. I absolutely adore that film.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
The other thing we need to acknowledge is where we got the deck from and how old that deck is. If you bought it or received the deck new, then this deck for sure didn't have a previous owner, and you're pretty safe just doing a very normal setup for your deck. But if you got the deck second hand, then you might want to consider working out how old that deck might be and who might have owned that deck previously. This could mean finding out when the deck was originally released, finding out when your copy of that deck was released, if there are multiple editions, and what that might mean in terms of ownership. One of your decks from an occult shop or a second-hand shop that deals in these things, you might actually be able to ask about previous ownership. But this is a rare find in the average thrift or charity shop, so it's going to be a lot of guesswork. In my case, I know that this hasn't existed all that long. It got published in 2020, and I'm pretty sure it's only actually had one round of publishing. So there's a good chance that this has only had one previous owner. Also, as I said before, the band was still around the cards when I opened up the box. So it's a pretty decent indication that no one has used this deck, or they were very, very careful about using it when they did use it. This is actually a very big possibility with many secondhand decks, that it may be secondhand, but never used. Now that you have an idea of what your deck is all about, you can start with the most important step of introducing a new deck into your repertoire. Just like washing new clothes before you wear them, which is something that I hope you're doing. You should, if you don't, especially if you're buying them secondhand. Do not need anybody getting bed bugs. Cleansing spiritual items when they enter your home gives you the best possible chance of integrating them into your personal energetic ecosphere. It also stops weird vibes from coming into your house, or even other entities from entering your home without permission. I think I mentioned this in my Communing with Spirits video, but I might make a specific video about cursed objects and general enchantments at some point. If you have a brand new deck or one that's never been used before, you can just cleanse the item of stagnant or outside energy. Anything that might have been picked up between the warehouse to you. This could be with incense smoke, with a cleansing crystal like clear quartz, or obsidian perhaps, or with sound like chimes or bells. You only have to do this once as well. If the item has been used before, however, it might be a good idea to do some kind of cord cutting ritual to disconnect the item from its previous owner. This can be done with a small piece of thread and some scissors, or an anthone knife if you're that way inclined, and simply state that the thread represents the connection between the deck itself and the original owner, and that the cutting of the thread represents severing that connection. You can then cleanse the deck as you normally would, removing any lingering energy from that deck in the process. Admittedly, this is going to depend on where and who you got the deck from. Like, I have two Rider-Waite decks. One that's mine, that I bought brand new, and one that was my grandma's. I also have another deck that was my grandma's. This is the Truthseeker's Tarot. And I didn't actually cord cut for these decks, even though they had previous owners. Or at least a previous owner. I don't know if she bought those secondhand. But this is because I literally work with ancestral spirits, and didn't want to disconnect her from the decks that she then gave me. You don't have to disconnect people from the objects that you now work with, if you want to work with that connection specifically, but do so at your own risk. After cleansing though, I do tend to leave the deck on my altar for a few days to acclimatize to my energy. A few generally ends up being about 3 days when I'm counting, but it can be anything up to a week. If you have a working altar that you use for spell work and other divination, then this might be something that you want to consider, though it's okay just to leave the thing overnight. Once your deck is cleansed and ready for you to imprint your vibes onto, now it's time to do a deck interview. What do you mean interview your deck, Charlemagne? That doesn't make any sense. It does, my friend. It really does. All objects and items that you use for spiritual work are going to have strengths and weaknesses, optimal uses and poor use cases. The deck interview process is a way to get to know the deck and its strengths and weaknesses. It's functionally like a first date, but for your deck. I've actually shared this deck interview spread before, and I believe it's one of the spreads that I added to my How to Tarot journal. The main points you should be asking your deck in this reading are what its strengths are, what its weaknesses are, and how you can help each other in this tarot practice. This could be a 3-card spread or an extended spread like the one that I demonstrate in the How to Tarot journal, and specifically the one I'm sharing on screen now. But this is a very important process to start learning the tarot deck that you're using and to be able to use it most effectively. Lastly, once you've done this first interview reading, now is the time to test the deck in your environment. This is best done by reading for yourself with the deck in different facets of your life. Do love readings, do career readings, do a Celtic cross, do 3, 4, 5, 6 card spreads. The whole 9 yards. Make this deck your working deck for as long as it takes you to understand what you're going to use this deck for. I have got a lot of decks at this point, and I think I've run this test on every single one in order to find out what each of them do best. I've got tarot decks that I only use for myself, tarot decks that I strictly use for other people, ones that I use for demos and witchcraft workings, and all of those came to their uses by me testing them out and comparing results. While we are working in the realm of spirituality, the scientific method does not go amiss. It may be subjective, but it works for the internal self as a way of understanding what we like best. Please give this a try with any new deck that you might get, and let me know how you fare. Thank you very, very much for watching, my friends. I appreciate you all very much. I did want to get this video out before Christmas originally, but between the trying to move out of my house and the being really, really sick at the beginning of the month, I just couldn't do it. I also really didn't want to pull all of my tarot decks out of the box last second just to film a video, so here we are. If you do have any questions about what you saw in this video, please drop it in the comments or DM me. I'm always open for questions. Tarot, divination, or other spirituality wise, or even just to chat. And until we see each other again, stay blessed, my friend.